"I received news of his death yesterday," replied Prince Andrew abruptly. Kutuzov looked at him with eyes wide open with dismay, and then took off his cap and crossed himself. "May the kingdom of heavens be his! God's will be done to us all!" He sighed deeply, his whole chest heaving, and was silent for a while. "I loved him and respected him, and sympathized with you with all my heart." He embraced Prince Andrew, pressing him to his fat breast, and for some time did not let him go. When he released him, Prince Andrew saw that Kutuzov's flabby lips were trembling and that tears were in his eyes. He sighed and pressed on the bench with both hands to raise himself. "Come, come with me, we'll have a talk," said he. But at that moment Denísov, no more intimidated by his superiors than by the enemy, came with jingling spurs up the steps of the porch. Despite the angry whispers of the adjutants who tried to stop him, Kutuzov, his hand still pressed on the seat, glanced at him glumly. Denísov, having given his name, announced that he had to communicate to His Serene Highness matter of great importance for their country's welfare. Kutuzov looked wearily at him and, lifting his hands with a gesture of annoyance, folded them across his stomach, repeating the words, "For our country's welfare? Well, what is it? Speak!" Denísov blushed like a girl. (It was strange to see the color rise in that shaggy, bibulous, time-worn face), and boldly began to expand his plan of cutting the enemy's lines of communication between Smolensk and Vyazma. Denísov came from those parts and knew the country well. His plan seemed decidedly a good one, especially from the strength of conviction with which he spoke. Kutuzov looked down at his own legs, occasionally glancing at the door of the adjoining hut, as if expecting something unpleasant to emerge from it. And from that hut, while Denísov was speaking, a general with a portfolio under his arm really did appear. "What?" said Kutuzov in the midst of Denísov's explanation. "Are you ready so soon?" "Ready, your Serene Highness," replies the general. Kutuzov swayed his head as much as to say, "How is the man to deal with it all?" and again listened to Denísov. "I give my word of honor as a Russian officer," said Denísov, "that I can break Napoleon's line of communication." "What relation are you to Intendant General Kirill Andréevich Denísov?" asked Kutuzov, interrupting him. "He is my uncle, your Serene Highness." "Ah, we were friends," said Kutuzov cheerfully. All right, friend. Stay here at the staff, and tomorrow we'll have a talk." With a nod to Denísov, he turned away and put out his hand to the papers Konovítsin had brought him. "Would not your Serene Highness like to come inside?" said the general on duty in a discontented voice. "The plans must be examined and several papers have to be signed." An adjutant came out and announced that everything was in readiness within. But Kutuzov evidently did not wish to enter that room till he was disengaged. He made a grimace. "No, tell them to bring a small table out here, my dear boy. I'll look at them here," said he. "Don't go away," he added, turning to Prince Andrew, who remained in the porch and listened to the general's report. While this was being given, Prince Andrew heard the whispers of a woman's voice and the rustle of a silk dress behind the door. Several times on glancing that way he noticed behind that door a plump, rosy, handsome woman in a pink dress with a lilac silk kerchief on her head, holding a dish and evidently awaiting the entrance of the commander-in-chief. Kutuzov's adjutant whispered to Prince Andrew that this was the wife of the priest whose home it was, and that she intended to offer His Serene Highness bread and salt. Her husband has welcomed His Serene Highness with the cross at the church, and she intends to welcome him in the house. She's very pretty," added the adjutant with a smile. At those words, Kutuzov looked around. He was listening to the general's report, which consisted chiefly of a criticism of the position at Tversko-Zamoyski, as he had listened to Denísov, and 7 years previously had listened to the discussion at the Austerlitz Council of War. He evidently listened only because he had ears which, though there was a piece of tow in one of them, could not help hearing. But it was evident that nothing the general could say would surprise or even interest him, that he knew all that would be said beforehand and heard it all only because he had to, as one has to listen to the chanting of a service of prayer. All that Denísov had said was clever and to the point. What the general was saying was even more clever and to the point. But it was evident that Kutuzov despised knowledge and cleverness and knew of something else that would decide the matter, something independent of cleverness and knowledge. Prince Andrew watched the commander-in-chief's face attentively, and the only expression he could see there was one of boredom, curiosity as to the meaning of the feminine whispering behind the door, and a desire to observe propriety. It was evident that Kutuzov despised cleverness and learning and even the patriotic feeling shown by Denísov, but despised them not because of his own intellect, feelings, or knowledge. He did not try to display any of these, but because of something else. He despised them because of his old age and experience of life. The only instruction Kutuzov gave of his own accord during that report referred to looting by the Russian troops. At the end of the report the general put before him for signature a paper relating to the recovery of payment from army commanders for green oaks mown down by the soldiers, when landowners lodged petitions for compensation. After hearing the matter, Kutuzov smacked his lips together and shook his head. "Into the stove, into the fire with it, I tell you once for all, my dear fellow," said he. "Into the fire with all such things. Let them cut the crops and burn wood to their heart's content. I don't order it or allow it, but I don't exact compensation either. One can't get on without it. When wood is chopped, the chips will fly." He looked at the paper again. "Oh, this German precision!" he muttered, shaking his head. End of chapter 15. War and Peace, Book 10, Chapter 15. Read for LibriVox.org by Andy Yu, Mississauga, Canada.